Good morning, my friends. Welcome to MC Instagram Live Jedi Monday. I am calling up my guest, Miss Brady Snider, as we speak. I got to tell you, deal. And and I've been actually
It.
hanging out with her quite closely. There she
Good
is.
morning.
Is that
I'm great.
you,
How are you?
Brady? There she is. How are you? Good. I was just telling my community about you when you came on. I said, I've been probably closer to you now since about last August, September than the 20 plus years that I've known you. And it's really given me a kind of a bird's eye box row seat to see what makes PCI PCI. So I've interviewed a lot of your educators and your students. So to have you
Well,
on,
thanks for
it's
having
really
me.
cool. Thanks for giving us a few minutes of your time this morning. Well, I'm going to engage you in some real deeper conversations around some unique things I've noticed at PCI. But before I do that, I always like to give my community the opportunity to hear the story of my guest, because there's something in the story that people find to be inspiring. And I love your story. Your story as it relates to PCI
Sure.
is
Yeah.
quite the story. So
So
tell
I
my
always grew up
community
knowing
what
that I
I
wanted
know.
to be in the beauty industry. So from a young age, I knew that that was going to be the path that I was going to take. I graduated from PCI in Ames. I had a wonderful experience. I loved every aspect of the beauty industry. And I graduated. I went and worked in a full service salon. I did hair, skin, nails, all of that. And kind of a long story short, I ended up getting allergic to hair color. So I was pretty stubborn, and I continued to do it for quite some time. But it was getting to the point where I was getting sick, and I knew that I needed to do something different if I was going to stay in the beauty industry. And PCI called and said, "Hey, we think that you should come back as an educator." And at first I was like, there's no way. I had no desire to be a teacher, if you will. But I reluctantly said yes, and it ended up being the best decision ever for me. So I've been with PCI now for 22 years or so. And yeah, it's been amazing. I started as an educator. And right when I came back and I started working is really when Randy was working with us. He had worked with us in the salons that we had at the time, but he really joined in and said, wow, this is pretty cool. We need to do something here. And so that's really kind of right at the time that I started my career at PCI. And yeah, it's been amazing. Go ahead. Yeah, we
No,
saw what the
no, you
Summit
go.
systems were
Finish
doing
off.
with our graduates that were going into salons that had those systems. And like me, I struggled when I left school. Excellence in education was always important, but what we weren't taught was the business of the beauty industry. And so what we were seeing with our graduates going into these Summit salons was just amazing. It wasn't taking so long to build their business. So, you know, we were like, we need to be teaching this at the school level. And so we really pioneered, kind of created those systems at the ground level, and started seeing that when our students were, learning communication skills, learning those things that were needed to be successful in the salon, when we were teaching them at the school level, we just saw their growth and their confidence happening so much faster because we were teaching that at the school level, and they were accomplishing goals, and therefore our students were growing, the salons were growing, and then we started growing, and I started growing too.
Wow. I mean, there is so much that you packed in probably the last couple of minutes. I want to unpack just a couple of parts of this. So you once upon a time, you started as everybody starts, an educator. And when you look at the ladder of opportunity, you're at the top. I mean, you are the person that I really work with. I know that Angie was at one point, kind of your lead. And one of these days, I'm going to get her on too. I'd love to get her story. But there's another part of this called, in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, when you really start climbing up the tree, PCI was the very first, we're going to call it Summit School. And now there are a number of schools that have the Summit model. There are Summit Salon Academies, but PCI was the first. And whatever involvement I had at PCI before, let's say, Q4 of last year, pales in comparison to now. And one of the things that I've noted is, in addition to being the first really Summit school, I've not seen, and I'm not saying it's not there, but I've not seen a Summit school have the systems enculturated to the degree that I see them at PCI, at the educator level, the student level, the admissions level, the financial aid level. And what I'm real curious about is just kind of being a reporter at large is how did that happen? How did it get to the degree that it got? And do you see that when you have your Summit school?
I would say it just continues to build over time. I think it really starts at the heart. Part of our belief system is that our student is our number one guest. And for us as the leadership team, we see our staff as our guests too. So hands down, it's really at the heart of who we are and what we believe, that we're here to be able to serve our students and help them have a better life through our systems and through their education, as well as our staff. So everything that we do, not only for the students, we're also implementing for our team too. So, at the ground level, everything that we do starts with, our systems. So I think a lot about like the power wheel. Of course, there's the traditional model, and we continue to evolve that to new heights. But we incorporate that to, how our students are learning how to serve guests, but also how our educators serve our guests, which is the students. In admissions, we utilize that model for how they're serving our future students as well.
Yeah, I mean, that was one of the first things I noticed, that in every process at PCI, the power wheel is the bedrock, right? So that I see that process as I watch a potential student that wants a tour. I see the footprint of the wheel in that process between the admissions, and now you refer to them as career coach. When I watch an educator doing one-on-ones with the students, to when I watch the educator do real-time consultation and greetings with students as they're both serving guests together. I've not seen it. I mean, I've seen it before, but not to the depth and the degree. And it's profound. It's extraordinary. I want to get you talking about a piece of this, and I'm going to have you back because there's several pieces, but one of them that I see, and I just alluded to it, you're the one that said, we don't check haircuts here, as kind of one of the mottos, that because in the classic traditional cosmetology school, that is one of the job descriptions of an educator. They kind of, I call it wandering around the floor, and when they're needed, they come in, check in, and make sure that everything is good. But you don't check haircuts there. You do something much, much more, I don't know what to call it.
I really
different.
believe that, through
that
using the power wheel, it's really like the level of service or the level of experience that we're giving. So we really see it as an experience. As educators serving the students. And then together, the educator and the student then are going to give the outside guest an experience. So right from the beginning, whether that's in our training with our staff, we're teaching them how to be able to do that. And part of it is, showing up with the right mindset, and the right presence as an educator with the students. And so knowing that our role is to be able to guide them through each of their guest experiences throughout the day, you show up differently, knowing that that is what our role is each and every day. And
Yeah, it's and I've made this reference before. It's almost like PCI is like a male clinic of a beauty school, because you see that same. If anybody's ever been to a male clinics or one of their campuses, you see the educator slash physician with a physician serving a patient in real time, and the senior physician is not watching or checking there. It's a team approach. And I remember talking about that when we had the educator roundups, and Michael Cole would have educators for the day, and I expected that to some degree educators would go and use some of this. But when I came to PCI and I saw it fully integrated, I went, OMG, like this is, and that an educator, you can't fake that. If you, to the degree that you have authentic experience being a service provider in a salon that does consultation after and you do them well, and you have the metrics to show it, you could do that as an educator in real time. But to the degree that you don't, that is a very vulnerable. And I've even listened to educators saying one of the reasons why I left the salon is so that I wouldn't have to do that anymore. How do you ever get an educator that's a little bit confused about that, and where they really wouldn't kind of be cut from that cloth,
because it does
and
take
as a
a
result,
different
you wouldn't see them around more.
of service. Not only am I vulnerable as the educator there, right? And so I have to get my mindset in a place of being confident, but I also am serving a student who a lot of times has a lot of fear and anxiety and all of those emotions happening at the same time. So not everybody has the level of willingness, I would say, to be able to work through that. We do very much, our part of coaching and training and passing on our courage, and practicing with our educators as well too. So yeah, I think your heart has to be in it, definitely. And, just being this rock for our students to say, hey, I got you, use my courage. So, at the end of the day, we have to show up with courage with, with our students as they're walking through it too.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, I mean, I get that. This piece is so huge. I want to unpack a couple more parts to it. One part is I've interviewed, as you know, a number of your students that have, especially those that get to, we'll call it a higher level, the fives, the sixes, etc. And with no exceptions, when I say, what are some of the more the memorable learning experiences that you had at PCI that you would say kind of greased the wheels to get you to the place that you're at? With no exception, all of them underscore that experience, that when I was learning the power wheel, consultation, read book, upsell, asking for referrals, whatever that was, I had my educator was with me at first, doing it for me. They were the pilot, I was the co-pilot, and then they eased me into pilot, but they were the co-pilot to watching me fly the airplane. And in retrospect, I was able to learn that more, better, faster, deeper than in a lot of times your exposure to something like that starts and ends in the classroom, we do a little bit of role play, and then it's fly, little birdie, fly. So that is a profound point of difference, I think. And second point I want to make is there's a number of your educators that work also in salons. So there's a couple of, I don't know if it's a few hours a week in the salon where I know that they were doing that in real time in the real world, like, last night or, on Saturday or whatever that is. And in some schools, that's just not the case. Once upon a time, the educator did that, but it's been many moons since. And so when they're put in that position,
I think our
they feel very
educators that are
vulnerable.
still
How do you
actively
handle that?
working in the salon, they love it. They're able to bring their experiences back to school the next day, or that type of a thing. And there's a level of just trust. I think that the students appreciate it. They see that, hey, I have some challenges too, or this is some of the things that I've been working through. I think it really just builds a really great level of rapport and trust. For our educators that have been with us for a while and are not working in the salon, they're very much staying abreast in education, and they're still doing it live with the students as well. And even though it can be uncomfortable sometimes, to do new things when, you're not in it that way, they're practicing, they're working with each other. Each of them help each other out to say, okay, well, how would you handle this experience, or what would you do, or what did you do? And they work together as a team. And I think it's that team aspect that that makes our culture the way that it is.
Oh, well, yeah, and I know that traditionally, there are many times where there's a power struggle between an educator and a student. And a student, and I'm not suggesting that this is in the PCI culture, but in schools, as you'll have a feisty student that'll say something like, "Well, you don't know how to do this," or and I don't see any of that there. And my intuitions are it's because they see in real time at ground zero the educator rolling up their sleeves and, I'm going to do this for you, and then we're going to do it together, and then you're going to do it, and I'm not going to let you fly until you feel like you're flying. And there's something about standing witness to that where a student would have a deeper regard for, all of a sudden the educator is more than they're a tutor. They're you almost, the student almost feels like a prodigy of the educator. And like I said, we talk about it in the training classes at Summit when educators come and get updates, but I've not seen it.
Yeah, we very much just really see that, whether it's educator to educator doing training or educator to the student, that, side by side, working side by side of togetherness is what happens. And, there are times where a student might not feel comfortable making an additional service offering or a reservation offering. And the educator, without a blink of an eye, is right there using, doing it for the student to, learn and borrow their words until they have the confidence to be able to do it on their own.
Yeah, and I mean, you really hit the nail on the head. Doing an additional service presentation offering, a rebook offering, and you get pushback all the time. Well, the state board, this is all the work is done by students, and I continue to say that's technical. I don't see your educators, you go stand over there, I'll foil this. I mean, the student is doing that work. But there's nothing in the mandates that says that an educator can't be part of a communication process, and that you really do have that. What I would call
our belief is that we grow people in our company and in our world, and part of that growth is confidence, it's courage, it's how to communicate with people. It's all of those different things. So whatever that looks like or whatever that takes, it could be different, you know, with each student and each guest experience, but that's what we do.
Well, I want to, there's another can that I want to open up, and I want to be very mindful of your time. Why don't we just talk about it a couple of minutes and kind of tap dance on the top of the can, and then that way I can get you to come back for an encore where we take a deeper dive, and that is every student that I see gets at least one monthly PDM, and which is that's a big deal. But as I start watching the anatomy of what I'll call the PCI PDM, for those that don't understand the lingo, is a professional development meeting, a coaching session where there's goals that are set up, and we talk about the goals, and it's broken down, and the student is kind of measuring what they treasure. I want to just have you talk a moment about when did that really start building momentum, and how much of a factor is that to the number of level jumps that I see going on at PCI? It looks to me like your average student is getting to higher levels than in other summit schools, and I can't help but wonder if, in addition to real-time learning, the monthly PDM,
oh, for sure,
the anatomy of that session,
it's
is
something
a
that
difference
we
maker.
have always done. I believe that we continue to elevate our experience that we're giving our students. You know, it's not just going through the process of it. It's really just the, again, like the purpose behind it. You know, I think our coaches really see themselves as vision builders for our students. You know, our role is to be able to create that vision for them and help them through their journey of school, but most importantly, the day that they leave school. And so right from, you know, right from the very beginning, it's about creating that relationship, that rapport, that trusted mentorship with that coach and that student, and really helping them see where they want to go. And every month coming back to that. Now, it may change and it may evolve, but it's very much a priority in our company that we do them. And so it is a must in our world.
And as somebody that I've kind of like lifted up the hood, I want to see what's under the hood. I want to see the anatomy of the process. And it is the degree of specificity and broken down. And I've even seen monthly one-on-ones halfway through the month to, you know, so I don't want to get into that on this one. I want to kind of tease the community, have you back sooner rather than later, and make that our entire conversation, because I would say that even Summit salons, hey, take a look at this, and if you're doing it to this specificity, you know, good for you. Fly, little birdie, fly. But my hunch is that there would be a number of Summit salons that go, whoa, we're not doing it to that degree. And I could see that if we were, our people could get to farther places faster. And so it's brilliant.
Absolutely.
So promise me you'll come back for an encore so we can have that conversation. All right. And before I let you go, I don't want to say go and twist Angie's arm, but encourage her to, I would love to have her on and get her story and what she sees, as well as Steph. The three of you are really kind of the core ownership, and now you have a number of shareholder leaders in the mix. But I just think that as a threesome, you really, there's a power, there's a synergy there that other people would find to be inspiring and insightful. So please do that. All right. Well, have a good day, and I'll see you sooner rather than later. At some point, I want to get you into a conversation about the work that we're doing around mindfulness training for educators.
Sounds good.
But we'll call that encore number 2.
Thank you. Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Have a good one, my friend.